Thank you. I'm a lawyer. You don't have to give me warnings because the more I talk, the more you'll have to pay me. So I'll keep a check on my time.
I hope Zildur Rahman has taken a note of that.
Hopefully,
Thank
yes.
you.
See, the environmental security issues in Bangladesh originate not only from the country itself. We do have environmental issues, environmental crises that are results of international activities, for example, climate change. Now, if climate change happens the way it is being feared, it is being predicted, then 1/3 of Bangladesh will go underwater. That means that the map of Bangladesh that we got in 1971 will be forced to be changed. The coastal districts will all be gone. So the next generation will be drawing the map of Bangladesh very differently than how we draw it. And this means that one of the most populated countries of the world will have to relocate 1/3 of its population to the remaining 2/3 landmass, which is already overcrowded. So this is a huge security issue because people who will be losing their land to the sea will have to be moving somewhere, and the host community will always not be very welcoming because their realities are also very hard. So this population may very well try to leave the country and go elsewhere, and that may lead to tension at the regional level. We do have water sharing issues with our neighboring countries, China and India. And on this count, we are not in a very advantageous position because we are the lower riparian country. And India and China and Nepal being upper riparian countries and having more economic powers than Bangladesh, do not always take into consideration the legitimate interests of Bangladesh. So they, as upper riparian countries, try to control the flow of the waters in a way that suit their economic agenda. And the United Nations Convention on this particular issue, sharing of and management of international waters, haven't been ratified by any of these countries. India hasn't signed it, and China has in fact opposed to this convention. So we have serious issues there. Within our national policy implementation, we see that we are going for a very GDP-centric development model, which is extremely exploitative, I would say non-inclusive and non-transparent. The agency that's responsible for management of agricultural land has already said that if the current model of development continues in Bangladesh, by 2050, Bangladesh will not be left with any more agricultural land. Now that is a serious problem. While we have actually been credited for growing our staple, having such little availability of agricultural land, now hearing this that by 2050 you will lose your agricultural land is a definite threat. Deforestation rate is one of the highest in the world. We have one of the most polluted rivers of the world in Bangladesh. In Environmental Performance Index, our rank was 179 out of 180 countries in 2018, 179 out of 180 countries in 2019. For some reason, because they have a weird checklist that does not necessarily reflect the national reality all the time. So in 2020, we have ranked 164 out of 180 countries, which is a rank that is not very encouraging. We have one of the most unlivable capitals of the world. Dhaka once became the most unlivable capital of the world. Now we are 7th or 8th, something like that, which also is not very encouraging. And yesterday's newspaper told us that our air that we are breathing every second is the most polluted in the world. So I'm sorry, I do not have much good news to share with you, but that's the reality in which I operate. However, Bangladesh, as I said, has shown the ability of growing its own staple. It has the largest mangrove of the world, the existence of which is being threatened with projects like Rampal coal-based power plant. We have the longest unbroken sea beach of the world, which is also under severe threat due to climate change. Our sweetwater fishery is the second largest in the world. Mache bhata Bangali jetake bole, but that also is being threatened because if climate changes and the sea level goes up, then the sea water would be intruding into the freshwater bodies, and the second largest sweetwater fishery will actually be damaged. However, this nation is a very complacent nature. We have over the years, because of the governance, because of the politics that has been dictating us, have learned to say, yeah, we are keeping well despite all adversities. So a person who had a road accident, if a relative goes to visit him and he has a broken hand, if the relative asks him, how are you doing? He would say, I'm doing well. That's a good news for the politicians. They have trained us to be complacent and not to complain. And I would actually be talking about some of the environmental challenges, which also has got something to do with our democratic pattern and governance. I don't think our model of democracy is very respectful. I think in the fast pace of development, we are actually contaminating, polluting, degrading, and losing most of our natural resource spaces, which is actually making it difficult for us to go for nature-based solution on the face of the climate change realities. We are increasingly relying on fossil fuel, but the call of the day is to switch to renewable and not to go for fossil fuel. Fortunately, for some reason, the government has said that it is going to postpone 18 proposed coal-based power plants. I do not know what the reason behind the decision was, because when they decided that they'll go for 24 coal-based power plants, they never talked to any of us. When they say they're not going to go for 24, that reason has also not been disclosed. So I think that the present model of development is not respectful to nature. It is extremely exploitative. We are following the model of development that has been followed by countries like EU, US, and China, and their model of development has given rise to a problem like climate change, which has actually brought the existence of the whole globe into some sort of a threat. So that model of development is not proper. When they developed, they did not have the alternatives. So when we are developing, we have the alternatives. When they developed 50 years back, 60 years back, nobody talked about renewable energy. Today, we have the solution of renewable energy. So we should follow the path of sustainability, and we should make our development inclusive. We should make our development equitable, and if it's not inclusive, if it's not equitable, if it is not transparent, it is not going to be sustainable. If you kill our...
Hasan, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'll finish in 1 minute, okay? So, but the two issues on which I would like to draw your attention is, if you, as a citizen, if I oppose the narrative of the government's development, I don't feel very secured. When we fought against the Pakistani rulers, we fought because we wanted democracy and we wanted to be included in the decision-making process. I don't think 50 years down the road we have a proper model of democracy. We have our unique model of democracy, but that's not allowing people their right to vote and their freedom of speech. I would definitely like to draw your attention to acts like Digital Security Act, which is actually curtailing our freedom of expression. And as an environmental justice advocate, I don't really always feel very safe when I want to oppose or criticize or go very critical about the development narrative that the government is giving. The other thing is the weird form of public-private partnership. We see that the Bangladesh Army is signing agreement with a disputed group like Shikdar Group for having a 5-star hotel in the land that is occupied by the indigenous people. First, we do not want that model of development. Bandarban itself is an eco-sensitive area. You don't need an eco-resort there. You just need to leave it undisturbed. And the thing is, the reason why I'm raising this issue is, you want to rely on your law enforcing agencies when your fundamental rights are violated. And here you see they're coming into partnership that will actually be strengthening a culture of impunity in this country and curtailing citizens' freedom of information. For environmental justice, democracy, freedom of speech, and justice is absolutely crucial.
A question about the ongoing NRC, national in India. They are doing some population survey, Citizens Amendment Act, and these are creating some problem for the minority Muslims. Do you think that there will be an exodus of minority Muslims out of India, and they may enter into Bangladesh and create a problem? Is there any possibility? What's your opinion?
Is this question directed to anyone specific?
No, not to anyone specific, to the panel.
Thank you.
Last
question. Then after Rizwana, just add your point.
I have a question.
Oh, you have a question. I mean, that's nice. So I would then certainly give the privilege to Advocate Hasan to ask the question.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I raised the issue of complacency because of the achievements that we have heard about in our health sector. Actually, during the pandemic, we have all experienced different sorts of incidences that were not very sweet. I mean, not getting service in the health sector is one thing, but even the messages that were coming to us during the pandemic weren't at all very reassuring. So when you painted a rather very happy, rosy picture of the health sector, I was being provoked. I understand that we have come a long way, but I think we have a long way to
Rizwana,
go.
for your question,
My
please.
question is, when you talk about regulating the private sector, keeping the public sector, how do you say it? I mean, operate the way they are operating now. Will it be possible to regulate the private sector if the public sector does not set standards, if the public sector is not standardized, if the public sector does not follow rules, if the public health sector is not service oriented, will the government be successful in regulating the private healthcare people? That is only one question. The other thing is about the health insurance. We certainly would support a proposal for health insurance, but I think it's extremely critical to make sure that the mass people get the benefit of this scheme, and this again does not become something to be regulated by another private sector against which the mass people will have to fight.